Welcome, everybody, to the third quarterfinal round for the largest ever international mock trial competition. We started with 48 teams and we're now down to the Elite Eight. We have an esteemed judging panel to make sure that one of these teams moves on and represents this part of the bracket. Best of luck to both teams. Of course, we're going to begin with our esteemed presiding judge, Mr. Braden Weese.
Hello, everyone. I'm Braden Weese. I'm a senior competing on Dickinson College mock trial. Um, I've judged a few of these before, but I'm really excited to get into it, and best of luck to everybody.
Everybody, my name's Ella McCrossan. I'm a sophomore competing on UCLA mock trial, but I've been doing mock trial for 9 years. I started in sixth grade, so very excited to see you all. Hope you have a great round.
Hi everyone, I'm Malina Gadsden. I'm a second year competing with Emory University mock trial. I've also judged a few of these before. Definitely familiar with high school cases, so I understand all of the struggles that come with it, but I'm excited to see what you all have prepared and have fun.
All right. Thank you to our scoring judges. And then if everybody is ready, the attorneys may make appearances.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution is present and ready to proceed.
Excellent. You may make appearances.
Yes, Your Honor. Before we begin with appearances, may we first inquire what time it is, for Your Honor?
For me, it is 10:08 p.m. So, yeah, evening for me.
In that case, then, good evening, Your Honor. My name is Hsieh, and along with me today is my co-counsel, Ms. Sammi Cheung.
Good evening, Your Honor.
Collectively, we represent the prosecution in today's trial.
Excellent. Can we have appearances from the defense attorneys?
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Coco Jang, and alongside my co-counsel, Anish Sachdeva,
Good evening, Your Honor.
we represent the defendant in this case, Nova Wölff.
Excellent, thank you. Does the state have any preliminary matters to address before we get into opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor. We would first like to invoke Rule 603, the constructive swearing-in of all witnesses, and Rule 615, the sequestration of all witnesses barring party representatives. And the prosecution does not have a party rep with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm assuming the defense has the defendant as their party representative.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, anything further from the state?
Your Honor, we'd also like to ask for your preferences on screen sharing. Would you like us to ask for permission every single time or simply state it for the record?
You can simply state it for the record.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution has no further pretrial matters.
Excellent. Any preliminary matters from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. I just wanted to state that we will be pursuing an affirmative defense in today's trial.
All right.
And with that, the defense is ready to proceed to opening statements.
Excellent. Then we will turn our cameras off and the prosecution may proceed with their opening statement whenever they're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. She acted as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. It's the night of March 11th, 2025, and the town of Corleone is peaceful. The streets are quiet, the curtains drawn, the doors closed. But behind one of those closed doors, a man is fighting to escape captivity. Cotter Ashlock had been walking down the street. He was struck unconscious and abducted by the defendant. He wakes up in the basement, tied to a chair with duct tape over his mouth, and he is then interrogated and threatened. Members of the jury, this was a crime fueled by vengeance and hatred for Cotter Ashlock and his family. A crime fueled by one woman's desire for vigilante justice. Members of the jury, justice is not one woman acting as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. And that is why we, the prosecution, are charging the defendant with unlawful imprisonment and interference with an officer today. Simply put, We need to prove that the defendant restrained the person without consent, illegally, and that this interfered with the police officer's duty. And as a prosecution, we understand that we have a burden of proof today to prove these claims beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning that there is no logical explanation other than the defendant's guilt. And members of the jury, if we meet this burden, you must find the defendant guilty. And we will do so today through 3 simple facts that I want you to keep in mind throughout the entirety of today's trial. Number 1, the defendant detained extensively. Number 2, the defendant dealt excessive harm. And number 3, the defendant disregarded the police. Let's go over them one at a time. Number 1, the defendant detained extensively. Members of the jury, you'll learn today that Mr. Ashlock was knocked out and taken to the defendant's house without consent. You'll hear from him that he woke up tied with ropes that resulted in burn marks around his wrists and that his mobile device was smashed and destroyed. Number 2, the defendant dealt excessive harm. Members of the jury, you'll learn that the interrogation Mr. Ashlock endured was brutal. You'll learn that Mr. Ashlock was found bruised and visibly shaken after the police force arrived. The defendant acted as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. Number 3, the defendant disregarded the police. Members of the jury, you'll learn today that the defendant was given clear warnings from the police not to get involved with Mr. Ashlock. And you'll learn that the defendant deliberately ignored those warnings and decided that he wanted to abduct Mr. Ashlock for the sake of avenging the death of his best friend. Members of the jury, the defendant decided to act as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. Members of the jury, the opposing counsel is going to come up and tell you that everything the defendant did was justified. But before that happens, I would like to remind you that justice is due process. Justice is the case laws built by each and every jurisdiction, and members of the jury, justice is the verdict of the courtroom. And members of the jury, justice is definitely not one woman acting as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. And that is why at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Cheung, is going to come up to you and ask you to find the defendant guilty on both counts. Thank you.
Thank you. And defense, you may proceed with your opening statement whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. The crime, the capture, the call. It's March 11th, 2025. Nova Wölff is at her house when she receives a warning that Cotter Ashlock, a criminal released on parole, was spotted in her neighborhood. But she'll learn that Ashlock had left the allowed location under his parole, and simply being in that neighborhood meant he was breaking the law. You'll learn that Wölff was concerned for both her own safety and the safety of those in her neighborhood. And you'll hear that upon knowing this information, Wölff decided to perform a citizen's arrest, a lawful response to the situation. Now, the prosecution will try to weave a story where Wölff is the vengeful vigilante and Cotter Ashlock was just a victim of her wrath. But what they will neglect to tell you was that Cotter Ashlock committed a crime and Wölff was only trying to hold her for the police. Today, the prosecution is charging Nova Wölff with unlawful imprisonment and interfering with an officer. Members of the jury, they have to prove these things to you beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest burden in our justice system, and that means suspicions and assumptions simply won't cut it. If there is any reasonable doubts in your mind, your verdict must be not guilty. Now, coming into court today, we have brought forth an affirmative defense. All that means is that we have to prove Nova Wölff performed a citizen's arrest by the preponderance of the evidence. Or, put simply, prove it more likely than not that Wölff used the necessary force to detain a criminal and hand them over to the police within reasonable time. Members of the jury, we intend to prove these things to you by walking you through the crime, the capture, and the call. First, the crime. The evidence will show that Cotter Ashlock violated not one, but two conditions of his parole. You'll learn that he left the allowed location under his parole to try and contact someone involved in criminal activity. Members of the jury, you'll learn that Wölff only decided to perform a citizen's arrest because she saw Ashlock actively committing a crime. Second, the capture. The prosecution will claim that Wölff held Ashlock in her basement against his own will, but the evidence tells a different story. We learn that when placing someone under citizen's arrest, Wölff had the authority to use reasonable force to keep Ashlock in place until the police arrived. And as the law allows, Wölff didn't need Ashlock's permission to detain him. That's simply how a citizen's arrest works. And finally, the call. The evidence will show that Wölff called the police when she was safe and Ashlock was detained. She didn't hide him, didn't obstruct law enforcement in any way. She simply detained Ashlock and handed him over to the police. Members of the jury, you'll learn that every step of this detention was handled lawfully. At the end of today's trial, my co-counsel Anish Sachdeva will ask that you find Nova Wölff not guilty, because the evidence points to the crime, the capture, and the call. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, the state may call their first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we'll be calling Officer Capolino to the stand.
All right, and you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Good day, sir.
Good day.
Can you please state your name for the record?
I'm Larry Capolino.
And Mr. Capolino, what do you do for a living?
Well, right now I'm an officer at the CPD, the Corleone Police Department. I've been in this line of work for almost 15 years at this point.
And why are you in court today?
Well, I spent my childhood by the oven, and over time got incredibly good at making pastries. I also got incredibly good at observing, especially observing what makes things fall apart. I did an investigation when our signature dish crumbled, and I found that I liked that more than making pastries. So I applied for the police academy and eventually became a detective.
But sir, why are you in court today?
Well, I was the lead investigator of Nova Wölff's imprisonment of Cotter Ashlock on March 11th. I'm here to offer my knowledge on the incident.
And who is Cotter Ashlock?
Cotter Ashlock was part of a crime family, the Ashlocks, and I've worked on cases involving them for over a decade.
Now, let's talk about what happened before and on the day of the incident. Can you please briefly describe your interactions with the defendant on that day?
Well, I called Nova once on March 6th, and she called me twice on March 11th. If Nova's side of the story was a cake, it was shoved into the oven way too fast.
Let's start with that call on March 6th. Why did you call him on that day?
Well, I was notified that a criminal, Cotter Ashlock, was recently released on parole and was violating his parole. So I just called Wölff to warn her not to interfere and involve herself in the matter.
And how did the defendant respond to that warning?
She didn't respond. She never even answered my call.
Now, let's move on to the first call on March 11th. About what time did that come in?
It came in approximately at 10:50 p.m., just when I was about to go back home and bake a cake for my niece's birthday. It was Nova Wölff calling.
And what was that about?
Since Cotter Ashlock was still on parole, I warned Wolf to stay out of it, and I wanted her to do nothing except report to me what she heard.
And how did the defendant respond?
Nova flatly refused and said, "I don't take orders from you, Inspector." When I warned her further, Nova exclaimed, "I will defy you."
So, sir, did you go off shift, as you said?
No, I didn't. I decided to stay in the office for a while longer to finish the last of my handmade donuts. The cake could wait a bit.
And now, let's talk about the second call on March 11th. What time did that come in?
It was about 11:35 p.m.
And what was that about?
It was Nova Wölff calling to report that a known criminal had trespassed on their property and was currently being held in their basement awaiting pickup.
How did you respond to that?
Well, I unfortunately had to put down my donuts and personally made the trip with a team of officers.
What did you see when you got there?
We found Cotter Ashlock disheveled and seated on a basement chair with his hands untied, but visibly shaken.
Mr. Capolino, why did you say earlier that the defendant's story was a dense cake?
Too little detail, too quickly. 10:50, there's crashing sounds from Nova's end. 11:35, Nova's telling me to pick up a criminal. Nova didn't let that cake rise. This story was shoved into the oven way too fast.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You
May
may
I
proceed.
proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good evening, Mr. Capolino. I'd like to begin by discussing your relationship with the defendant in today's case, Nova Wölff. Wölff was often involved with the infamous Ashlock family crimes, right?
Yes, they offered us some tips.
Right, she would supply the police with tips about the Ashlocks.
That's correct.
Some of those tips were useful.
Yes, they were like fortune cookies. Some were incredibly useful, others not very.
So I'd like to focus on one Ashlock in particular, Cotter Ashlock. You were aware that he was released on parole, right?
That's correct.
You later found out that Ashlock violated his parole by being in Corleone town.
That's correct.
Not only that, but Ashlock was allegedly trying to contact someone involved in criminal activity, correct?
Yes, I believe he was trying to contact loyalists and Jay Kuang.
Right, but upon hearing this, your priority was to call Wölff and discourage her from getting involved with the Ashlocks?
Yes, after all, Wolf had a very long history with these Ashlocks.
But, sir, Wölff didn't answer the phone?
Yes, she didn't answer the phone.
And Mr. Capolino, you didn't take any further actions to intervene with Cotter Ashlocks, did you?
Well, I didn't, because I wasn't clear of the parole violation, and that was for the prison to decide.
Sir, you were aware that he violated his parole and you didn't take any further actions?
Yes.
I'd like to shift gears to the day of the incident, March 11th, 2025. At 11:35 p.m., Wölff made a call to the police station about a known criminal being in her house, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Just after this call, you sent a team of officers to her location?
Well, ma'am, not just send a team. I made the trip myself. I had to put down all of my donuts and my coffee. It was, yeah.
Right, sir. So when you yourself arrived, you found Cotter Ashlock in a basement chair with his hands untied?
Yes, and visibly shaken.
You were questioning him on the ride back to the station?
No, I was questioning him outside the door.
Right, but you still questioned him in the end, correct?
That's correct.
Ashlock claimed that Wölff smashed his phone.
That's correct.
He also claimed that Wölff threatened him with a knife.
Yes.
Now, sir, your forensics team, they processed all the physical evidence, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Would you recognize a copy of this forensics report?
Of course.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that my co-counsel will now be screen sharing what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 11. Sir, what I'm showing you is a copy of the forensic report, right?
Yes,
It's fair and accurate.
that's correct.
Now, before we discuss the exhibit itself, this report was made near the time of the incident,
That's correct.
and as a police officer, you ask for forensic reports.
Yes, however, I don't really understand them.
Sir, all I'm asking is that you ask for them, right?
That's correct.
And these reports are regularly kept in your department's procedures?
I don't know if that's regular, ma'am.
Sir, you usually keep these reports in your department?
Well, I have them in my drawer.
All right. At this time, I'd like to bring the court's attention to Stipulation 14, which states that Dr. Marlia Kate qualifies as a custodian of Exhibit 11. With that, the defense offers Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
It is so moved.
I'd like to turn your attention to the section regarding the knife. It says that all of the partial fingerprints that were found on the knife matched Cotter Ashlock, correct?
Yes, however, we cannot rule out the fact that they could have used gloves. Just like we people who make pastries, we also use gloves.
Well, of course, sir, but if you look at the comments, it says it's unlikely that the knife was wiped down due to the amount of fingerprints, right?
Yes, that's why we would suspect that it's more of a glove thing.
But, sir, it says no other matches were made?
That's correct, ma'am. You don't leave blemishes when you have gloves.
Now, if you could have a look at the phone section, only fingerprints of Cotter Ashlock were found on the phone as well?
That's correct.
Mr. Capolino, these inconsistencies raised some concerns.
Inconsistencies?
Yes, sir, they raised lots of concerns.
No, ma'am.
Is it your sworn testimony that these inconsistencies didn't raise concerns?
No, it didn't raise concerns. No, they did raise some concerns, but not specifically to me.
Sir, in your department, all of these inconsistencies, they raised some concerns.
Yes,
But you were focused on determining whether or not Cotter Ashlock was abducted.
yes, that's correct. I was the lead investigator for this case.
Right, but your determination was on if Cotter Ashlock was abducted or not.
That's correct.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect examination?
No redirect, Your Honor. May my witness be excused?
Yes, he may. And then the state can call their next witness whenever they're ready.
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Mr. Cotter Ashlock to the stand.
All right, and you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
My name is Cotter Ashlock.
Sir, what do you do for a living?
Uh, uh, I'm currently unemployed. I was serving my prison sentence.
Why were you in prison?
I made bad decisions. I was raised in this background, a crime family, and I didn't know right from wrong. My past, it only ended when my cousin turned our entire family into prison.
Well, sir, why are you in court today?
You see, I was released on parole, serving my sentence for 5 years. I was then kidnapped by Nova Wölff.
Mr. Ashlock, would you recognize the person you say kidnapped you?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to ask the defendant to turn on their camera pursuant to Rule 615.
Can the defendant turn on their camera, please?
Mr. Ashlock, who are you looking at right now?
I'm looking at Miss Nova Wölff, the person who kidnapped me. I'm here to testify on what I know about her.
Now, sir, did you know Miss Wölff before you were kidnapped?
Honestly, I never saw her personally before this, but I know that someone was using her name as an email to send our family threats.
Sir, would you recognize the email if I were to show them to you today?
Yes, ma'am.
Let the record reflect that we're screen sharing Exhibit 12A and 12B. Sir, is this a true and accurate copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, not at all.
Your Honor, Exhibit 12A and 12B have both been pre-admitted into evidence under Stipulation 7. Now,
Defense,
sir,
do you agree with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In that case, the exhibits are admitted. Are these red boxes, were they originally on the exhibit, or are those edits that were made for the purposes of demonstrative aids?
they were made for the purpose of the demonstratives, and I believe they have been approved by the opposing counsel as well.
Understood. Thank you.
Now, sir, let's look at Exhibit 12. Sir, can you walk us through the document?
This is the email used by that person where they sent paparazzi photos to our family with the title Always Watching. Those emails were a needle in my heart, and my nieces cried after reading it.
Sir, let's look at some of those emails. Could you walk us through this document here?
Yes, ma'am. Here it says that this person called Wolf is the best friend of someone my family member murdered in cold blood. And she's trying to trace us till the end of the world. And she says here on the bottom, I will tie you up and torture you until you beg me to kill you. As I said, that's
Objection,
all.
Your Honor.
Okay. Can you state your
Uh,
grounds?
yes, Your Honor. I believe in the captain's meeting, this demonstrative was not shown, especially these red boxes in captain's meeting.
Okay. Prosecution, did you show these in the captain's meeting?
Your Honor, I believe we have made a mistake. We have not. We would be willing to show a version of the exhibit without the red boxes, if that's
Yeah,
allowed.
I think that's probably the easiest way to resolve that.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, motion to strike any testimony.
It's stricken insofar as the exhibit that the jury saw, but I don't think that there was any testimony specifically about the red boxes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, just for the members of the jury to be clear, could you walk us through Exhibit 12B?
Yes, ma'am. Again, it says this person called Miss Wolf is the best friend of someone my family members quote unquote murdered in cold blood. She's trying to, she says here, trace us till the end of the world. She says on the bottom, I will tie you up and torture you until you beg me to kill you. This was traumatizing.
Now, sir, was this the last time you heard from Miss Wolf?
No, no, ma'am. The next time I saw her, she kidnapped me.
So let's move on to how that happened. Could you tell us how you were kidnapped?
Sure thing. I was in Corleone town walking down the street, and suddenly I felt something hard and cold hit my head, and the next time I woke up, I was tied to a chair.
Sir, who did that to you?
It was Nova Wölff.
Now, so let's talk a bit more about what Miss Wolf did to you. How were you treated under her care?
How I was treated. She tortured me. She tortured me. She tied me up. She destroyed my phone. She interrogated me in that damp, dark dungeon with the knife and glove on her hands. Ma'am, ma'am, I know I did wrong things in my life. Maybe I deserved it, but this was traumatizing.
Well, sir, you said you were interrogated. Could you elaborate on what she interrogated you about?
She interrogated me about my cousin, Jay Kuang, the only family member I've left. Things would be a lot more clear if I may demonstrate a recording I took during my kidnapping, ma'am.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the prosecution is screen sharing Exhibit 2. Sir, is this a true and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, Exhibit 2 is pre-entered under Stipulation 7.
Understood.
Sir, may you please describe to the members of the jury what's on this recording?
Yes, ma'am. Main thing is, she says on here, quote unquote, I either talk to her or I talk to the police. If I don't tell her about Jay Kuang's information, she turned me into the police. If I told her what she wanted, she wouldn't. That's what she was interrogating me on.
And sir, for how long were you kidnapped?
For quite some time, I would say. I passed out at roughly 10:30 p.m. I was there for pretty long, probably a couple of hours.
And sir, how did you get out?
I passed out after this recording, only to find out that I was surrounded by police in that same basement, but with my smashed phone and the exact knife Nova Wölff held me to threaten me lying next to my feet. But the police brought me out, and here I am.
Thank you, sir. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good morning, Mr. Ashlock. I'd like to start by talking about your parole.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ashlock, you were on parole on March 11th, correct?
Yes.
That meant you were not allowed to leave New Hermitage, right?
I was, and I'm sorry.
Sir, were you allowed to leave New Hermitage?
No, sir.
And you went to Corleone anyway, right?
I did, and I'm sorry. I did so because it's a stupid reason. I was homesick. I wanted to see Jay Kuang so bad. I broke the parole for it. It was a stupid reason.
So you first told investigators that you were looking for sleeper agents, correct?
Indeed.
That wasn't entirely true, was it?
I was too nervous, and I referred Jay Kuang as sleeper agent.
This was someone who testified against your entire crime family, correct?
Yes, but he's also the only single kin I have left. But
Sir, I'd like to remind you that you can clarify this on redirect, but for now, I'd like a simple yes or no to my question. Jay Kuang was someone who ratted you out, correct?
yes, sir.
Someone you considered a hypocrite, right?
Yes.
So let me get this straight. On March 11th, you were in Corleone illegally, looking for Jay Kuang, the same person who put you in prison, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Ashlock, I'd like to talk about your time in the basement. Now, you claim while you were in the basement, Miss Wölff threatened you, correct?
Indeed, she did.
But, sir, isn't it also true that you threatened her back after the phone incident?
I'm sorry. Please clarify.
Yes, of course. Sir, is it true that you said, I swear to God, Wölff is dead if I can ever get my hands on them?
I was so pissed I said that in my deposition. Yes.
Yes, sir. Now, sir, are you aware that the phone you claimed that was smashed by Miss Wölff carries no trace of her fingerprints? Are you aware?
First of all, sir, I am not. Second of all, sir, she was wearing gloves, as I said earlier in my direct, but just I don't know about that, sir.
So, sir, you just said she was wearing gloves. You said no, and then you say, I don't know, sir. I'd like a simple yes or a no to my question, if that would suffice.
The answer to your question is I have no idea about the fingerprints.
Okay, Mr. Ashlock. Now I want to talk about something you do know. The immunity that was offered to you after everything that happened. So, after you were taken to the station, you were offered immunity.
Yes,
Immunity for violating your parole.
indeed I was.
Immunity for pursuing Jay Kuang.
Yes,
Now, that immunity only applies if you cooperate 100%, right?
it does.
Now, if you do
Or
not cooperate, you could go back to prison, right?
perhaps?
Immediately, correct?
Uh, yes.
So your freedom depends on your help to convict Nova Wölff, correct?
Yes, and it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor, not this time.
All right. And I'm assuming the state rests their case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor, we rest our case in chief. And may my witness be excused from the stand.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know, I mean, I guess we don't have an all loss, but I'm assuming we have time for like a 5-minute recess.
Let's take 5.
All right. And the defense, you can call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Charlie Reeves to the stand.
Good evening. Can everybody see me all right?
No, Mr. Reeves. You have to turn your camera on.
Maybe this button will do it. Technology these days, can I tell you? Moving faster than a New Yorker running late chasing his cab.
Sir, before we start, I just want to make sure you're safe. You don't be happen to driving, are you?
Oh no, just admiring my taxi. Beautiful thing, ain't she? I call her Sally. You know, brings me back to the good old days, driving through New York.
All right. Good evening, sir. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Ah, yes, pleasantries. Well, I'm Charlie Reeves. I drive a taxi. People say that there wasn't a taxi driver in the city as reliable as a good old Charlie. Once I made 67 trips in one day. I'm from Tilly, you know, but New York has always felt like home. I learned the lingo, and can you believe the amount of times I'm driving and I hear, "Hey, I'm walking here."
Well, sir, what do you do for a living?
I used to work as a taxi driver, but I'm retired. Detective novels is my thing now. My words of wisdom would be nothing hits the spot like a good Agatha Christie novel.
And Mr. Reeves, what is your involvement in today's case?
Ah, yes. I am great friends with the defendant in today's case, Nova Wölff. I'm here to testify on what went down on that awful day.
Well, Mr. Reeves, let's move on now. So how did you come to know Miss Nova Wölff?
Nova, she's like my grandkid. When I first moved to Corleone, Nova had always helped me around. She lent me packs of sugar, had me over for dinner. You know, a retired old man like me, not many people talk to me these days, and her actions touched my heart. We would talk about our favorite detective books and discuss the latest Ashlock family news.
Who are the Ashlocks, sir?
Well, according to Nova, and from what I read online, Ashlocks were a notorious family of criminals in Corleone, known for their heinous crimes. In fact, I'm here in court today because of an Ashlock, a Cotter Ashlock, I believe.
Objection, Your Honor, on the grounds of 801 hearsay.
All right. Can you, what statement are you objecting as hearsay?
Your Honor, the witness just stated that they learned about the Ashlocks from Nova Wölff and the news they read online, both of which are out-of-court statements offered for the truth of the matter asserted being the Ashlocks' crimes, and thus this statement falls under 801 hearsay and cannot be admissible.
Any response?
Your Honor, there are no specific statements that this witness has said. This witness is simply stating that he read a newspaper and from there he learned about the Ashlocks.
Your Honor, if I may be heard?
You may.
Your Honor, the witness has clearly just stated that He learned that the Ashlocks were heinous and they had committed crimes. And, Your Honor, this is truth value, Your Honor. And in this case, they are using it for the truth of the matter asserted, being that the Ashlocks have committed crimes in the past and are violent people, and thus this is an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and this falls under 801, which is inadmissible in this court.
All right.
Your Honor.
Real quick defense. So I don't know that I buy the argument that there's no statement that's been elicited. So do you have any response to the general statement that about the nature of the Ashlock family?
Your Honor, the witness is simply stating that they learned about the heinous crimes from the newspaper. They are not using this for anything. They're just stating that they're familiar with the Ashlocks because they used to, the fact that the witness read a newspaper about the Ashlocks and just described them as what they read from the newspaper. I don't believe there's any specific statement that is an out-of-court statement.
Response from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, 801 requires there to be an assertion made. And in this case, Your Honor, the assertion that the witness has made is the Ashlocks committed heinous crimes. And Your Honor, that is truth value, and that cannot be permitted in this course because it is an out-of-court statement that the witness read on the news and from Nova Wölff that is offered for the truth of the matter asserted, being that the Ashlocks committed heinous crimes. And thus, this is still inadmissible, and I stand my ground.
Your Honor, final response?
Yeah, final response.
Your Honor, in this case, we are not using the heinous crimes for the truth of the matter, but simply the effect on the listener that it had on Mr. Reeves. We are not using this for any truth value that they did do these heinous crimes, simply for the effect on the listener.
Okay. I'm going to overrule the objection with a limiting instruction for it not to be taken for its truth value.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, sir, what did you know about Cotter Ashlock?
Well, I knew that several weeks after moving here, he was arrested, thanks to Nova's help. She's a darling, ain't she? Helpful kid.
Your Honor, lack of foundation? Objection, Your
Honor. Yep. Response?
Your Honor, could opposing counsel clarify what foundation is being lacked?
Your Honor, if I may. Your Honor, the witness has yet to lay any foundation as to how she learned that Cotter Ashlock was released on parole and how she was breaking parole, and how Nova Wölff had helped them capture the Ashlocks in the past. Yes, in Your Honor, thus this is lack of foundation, as there has been no foundation laid to this point.
Your Honor?
You may.
In the previous question, we stated that they read a newspaper and they were known for their heinous crimes. And it was also mentioned in the newspaper that the arrest that happened, how Mr. Reeves knew that Ashlock was arrested in the newspaper.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Before you respond, has the witness testified that they read that in the news? Something that you're just now saying, defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
The witness testified, the witness testified that they heard about the details of the private investigator helping through the newspaper?
No, Your Honor. If I may proffer, in the next few questions, it will state how they're familiar that she got arrested because Mr. Reeves read it on the newspaper in further questions.
All right, response from the state?
Your Honor, if they were to argue that they're going to proffer and ask the question about where the witness has learned these facts, and then the witness is to respond that they learned it from the news or Miss Nova Wölff, then, Your Honor, I change my grounds to hearsay, as this is still out-of-court statements offered for the truth of the matter asserted, being that Cotter Ashlock was released on parole, Cotter Ashlock was breaking parole, and the Nova Wölff has helped the police time and time again to capture the Ashlocks. And Your Honor, these are more truth values that they are allowing into court, and this falls under 801 and thus cannot be admissible.
Response to hearsay?
Your Honor, in the same case, we are not using this for the truth of the matter. We don't care about the truth value that they were arrested. We only care about the effect on the listener that it had on Mr. Reeves.
And can you proffer what that effect is?
The effect on Mr. Reeves is that he knows that after he learns about Miss Ashlock getting arrested, Mr. Reeves learns the effect on the listener is that he has to be more careful in the neighborhood since there was somebody arrested.
Okay. I'm going to sustain the objection on the grounds of hearsay.
Yes, Your Honor. Motion to strike. So,
It's stricken.
yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir, let's shift gears to the capture now. The day of the incident, March 11th. Where were you at this time?
Well, I may forget my handy-dandy glasses sometimes, but I'll never forget that night. I was on my way home in the dark when I heard someone following me.
What happened next?
Now, I was extra paranoid at the time because one day, as I was having my morning coffee, I read in the newspaper that Cotter Ashlock had recently been released on parole.
And, sir, did you find out who was following you?
Yes. Well, long story short, I had went to Nova's house asking for help, and before long, there she went. She had taken off to investigate who it was.
And what happened after you found out who was following you?
When I finally got back home, I heard her shout, "Ashlock," followed by a slamming of a door. That's when I realized the person that was following me was probably an Ashlock. It still gives me chills to this day.
Now, sir, from there, did things escalate?
Well, you know I had to go watch. As they say in New York, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. But from my experience, I knew better than just to jump in. I pretended to water the plants downstairs. And man, it was over before it started. It was like a blur. A figure burst out of Nova's door and stumbled to the edge of the driveway. And at that moment, my suspicions were confirmed. The person that was following me was Cotter Ashlock.
Your Honor, objection on the grounds of lack of foundation.
All right, can you elaborate a bit?
Your Honor, the witness has yet to lay any foundation as to how they recognize Miss Nova Wölff, Mr. Ashlock, Your Honor, and how the witness knows what Mr. Ashlock looks like.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Reeves stated that he saw Ashlock from the night, and he heard them shout Ashlock. In the previous question, when I asked what happened next, this witness stated that they heard Miss Wölff say Ashlock, followed by the slamming of a door.
Your Honor, if I may be heard?
No need. I'm going to sustain the objection. I think we need more foundation as to how this witness was able to identify them and how armed their suspicions that the person following them was an Ashlock.
Yes, Your Honor. Motion to strike.
It is stricken.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, how did you know it was Miss Ashlock that was following you that night?
Well, as I was watering my plants, Nova screamed, "Ashlock!" And he looked strikingly similar to the person that was following me. And I also had read the news before, so one thing goes to another, and I thought it was Ashlock.
Now, where did the Ashlocks go?
Well, first, Nova stepped out of a door and muttered some words that I couldn't pick up on. Ashlock, he hesitated, and then looked over his shoulder and muttered to himself. And then, to my absolute surprise, this bloke marched back into the house he had just run from. Youngsters these days, man, can I tell you? Now, why would somebody go into the same house they had just run from?
Now, what happened after he entered Wolf's house?
Well, after Cotter Ashlock walked through the door, it was like all hell broke loose. There was yelling, followed by a scrape of furniture, and then a loud crash, and something shattered on the floor. I mean, in the midst of all the chaos, I heard Nova shout, "You have a knife?"
And what happened next, sir?
And then there was more yelling. It sounded like someone was in pain. Nova shouted something like, "Stop, let go," before a nasty, ear-splitting scream cut through the room. My old ears, they were begging for mercy.
And, sir, did you report this to anyone?
Yes, after the police arrived, I reported everything that I saw. Stuff like this usually excites me, but not when my best friend's life is on the line. That would just be terrible, and I wouldn't want that to happen. I really hope Nova is okay.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. At this time, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good evening, Mr. Reeves.
Good evening, ma'am.
I want to start off by asking you about some statements you made on your direct examination. You said you were great friends with Nova. Is that right?
Yes, she was like a grandchild to me. She was so helpful, lending me sugar, inviting me over.
And so, sir, as you just said, you view Miss Nova as a grandchild, and you'd say you two were really close, correct?
Yes, I would say we were great friends, yes.
And since you guys are friends, Mr. Reeves, you go as far to say you wouldn't forgive yourself if Miss Wölff got hurt by the Ashlocks in this incident, correct?
Yes.
Now, sir, let's move on to whether or not Miss Wölff wanted revenge. You and Miss Wölff talked a lot, right?
Yes, we did.
And you learned a lot of things about Corleone from her?
I did.
And you first heard about the Ashlock family from Miss Wölff, correct?
That's true.
And she wanted revenge for the actions of the Ashlocks years ago?
Yes, that's what she told me. But although, you see, I took it as passion. Back in my days when I was a taxi driver, I used to watch movies and read books about taxi driving, and she was very, very passionate. She was so passionate, I didn't even believe that she actually wanted revenge.
Well, sir, you say she was passionate, and you'd agree with me that Miss Nova Wölff was passionate about getting revenge, correct?
Well, you could say that, but passionate.
Defense, you have an objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Objection as to speculation. Opposing counsel is asking Mr. Reeves to delve into the mind of Miss Wölff and find out if Miss Wölff was passionate about these statements.
Your Honor, if I may be heard?
You may.
Your Honor, this is a cross-examination, and in this case, Your Honor, if the witness does not know the answer to something, if they don't want to speculate on someone's emotions or feelings or thoughts, they can simply say that they don't know.
Your Honor?
I agree. I'm generally of the opinion that witnesses can state that they don't know if on cross-examination, so I'm going to overrule.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, sir, Miss Nova Wölff wanted revenge for the actions of the Ashlocks years ago, correct?
Yes, she was a person of justice. So I believe that she got caught up. She had a lot of detective stories, and I just believe that she was, just delusional, as the youngsters say it.
So, sir, you say she was caught up and delusional, but you'd agree that these delusions caused her to want revenge because she believed that the Ashlocks had her best friend killed, correct?
Yes, that's true.
And, sir, Miss Nova Wölff, she moved here to Corleone specifically for this revenge, is that right?
Well, that's what she told me.
So, sir, you're agreeing with me that she told you that she moved here to Corleone for revenge?
Yeah, that's what she told me.
Now, so let's move on to the night of the incident. So you were walking home at around 10:30 p.m. that night, right?
Yes, that's true.
And you heard someone following you?
That's true.
And you couldn't identify them, could you?
No, I really couldn't make out the face, but I was really scared, so, I just crossed the street and made my way home.
And, sir, you said you were scared, but you ended up asking Miss Wölff for help, correct?
Yes.
And, sir, you said you were scared, but Miss Wölff was quite excited about the prospect of helping you, correct?
Yeah, she was surprised and excited, but I was scared, so I just naturally went to her. She was my next-door neighbor.
Yes, sir, but you'd agree with me that Miss Wölff was quite excited about the prospect of helping you with whoever was following you?
I believe so, yes.
And so you went into your house afterwards, isn't that right?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
You went into your house afterwards?
Yes, I went straight home. I was very scared.
And you heard her exclaim Ashlock really, really loudly.
Yes, and then I heard a door slam.
And sir, that's when you realized that it was Cotter Ashlock that was following you?
That's true.
And sir, you testified on your direct examination that you heard yelling, scrapes of furniture, and overall chaos?
Yes, I mean, it was crazy. I heard a lot of things, yes, but that's true.
So yes, sir, it was crazy, and yet you didn't call the police, did you?
No, you see, I don't actually own a telephone, and so I couldn't call the police.
So sir, you didn't attempt to find anyone to help you call the police either?
No, I was just scared in the moment. I was watching what was going on, and in my old age, I couldn't run to find somebody.
So sir, you decided not to call the police and not to ask anyone to help, even when you discovered that the man following you was a criminal?
Well, yes, but as soon as the police arrived, I told them everything.
Also, you told them everything after the police arrived, but prior to that, you did not even attempt to call the police. Is that right?
Objection,
Well,
Your
ma'am,
Honor. Asked and answered.
Response?
Your Honor, the witness has given very long explanations, and I'm simply trying to ask them for a clear answer, yes or no, to my question.
Your Honor, they previously asked, why didn't you contact the police? And then after that, they stated that they didn't. They asked Mr. Reeves if they asked anyone, like their neighbors, for a telephone to help them contact the police.
Your
Okay.
Honor, Your Honor, if I may?
No need. I'm going to overrule. It's cross-examination, so I'm going to give some leeway.
Yes, Your Honor. So, sir, back to my question. Even when you heard all the chaos and, as you said, crazy things happening, you did not attempt to call the police in any way, correct?
ma'am, as I stated earlier, I don't own a telephone. That's something that the youngsters do. So I just couldn't call the police.
Sir, I'm not asking whether you called the police, but you didn't attempt to ask anyone to call the police for you either, did you?
Well, no, I didn't really see anyone around in that area at the moment, so I just simply couldn't.
So, sir, when you heard everything going on, you decided to stay in your house and not
That's
call the
true.
police.
Objection, Your
That's
Honor.
true.
Asked and answered.
Response?
Your Honor, I have phrased my question differently, and I'm asking answers based on different circumstances that the witness was put in and whether or not they called the police in those specific circumstances. And thus, it's not asking answers, it's a different question.
Your Honor, the question is the same. It's that you stood outside and you didn't call anybody or call the police. That's the same question, Your Honor.
I'm still going to overrule because it's cross, but I would advise the state to move along.
Yes, Your Honor. So, one last question, sir. When you heard that the criminal following you was Cotter Ashlock, and when you were scared, sir, you did not ask anyone for help, is that right?
Ma'am, I asked Nova Wölff for help.
But sir, when you were in that house, sir, and Nova Wölff was screaming in pain in the house next door, you did not ask anyone for help?
Well, Nova was not screaming in pain. I don't remember that. I know she yelled, "Stop, let go," but I just simply couldn't. You see, I was standing on the side of my house watering the plants, and I was just watching. I did everything that I could.
So you say you did everything that you could, but you didn't ask anyone for help and you didn't call the police?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. And objection to compound question.
I'm going to sustain on the asked and answered grounds.
A motion to strike.
The question is stricken, yes.
Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Yes, they may. And you can call your next witness and proceed when ready.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the defense calls Miss Nova Wölff to the stand. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Good evening. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good evening. My name is Nova Wölff.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a private investigator and a proud mother of two tiny kung fu masters, taught by no other than me, of course.
Ma'am, how did you become a private investigator?
Well, you see, when you're raising two rowdy daughters, you basically become a detective anyway. You know, who started the fight? Who karate chopped the plant in half? It just works out.
And what is your involvement in today's case?
I'm here because I'm being accused of kidnapping someone named Cotter Ashlock.
Before we move on, who is Cotter Ashlock?
Our relationship circles pretty far back, but Cotter Ashlock was one of the many people I helped the police arrest.
All right, let's walk through what happened on the day of the incident, March 11th, 2025. Where were you at the time?
I was inside my house when I looked outside my window and was utterly shocked to find Cotter Ashlock just lurking around outside.
Why were you shocked?
Well, you see, a short while before this encounter, an officer named Larry Capolino had warned me about Cotter Ashlock over the phone.
Let's talk about this call. Would you recognize a copy of it if I showed it to you?
Yeah, of course.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that my co-counsel will now be screen sharing what's been previously entered as, pre-marked as Exhibit 4B. Miss Wölff, what am I displaying on screen?
It appears to be a transcript of the call with Officer Larry Capolino.
Does it look fair and accurate?
If you could go into slideshow.
Ma'am, does it look fair and accurate?
I don't see on the screen right now.
Co-counsel, can we get
could-
the exhibit? Co-counsel, I believe the exhibit is still not up. Miss Wölff, does this look fair and accurate?
Yeah, it does.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, doesn't look like it.
The defense offers Exhibit 4B into evidence.
Any objections?
Objection, Your Honor, on the grounds of hearsay.
Response?
Your Honor, we are not using this exhibit for the truth of the matter asserted, rather for its effect on the listener, which in this case is Nova Wölff. And Your Honor, if I may proffer,
You may.
we are only using these statements to show that my witness was informed that Cotter Ashlock was in her city and actively violating his parole. We're not using it for any truth matter, only to show that Wölff was made aware of this information.
Response from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. The fact that the witness was informed of something implies truth value. So it is still an out-of-court statement used for the truth of the matter asserted.
Final response from the defense?
Your Honor, we're not using the fact that Cotter Ashlock was in Corleone for the truth. We're only using it to show that Nova Wölff was aware of this and changed her actions accordingly.
Can I ask, defense, so obviously this exhibit contains both the detective statements and Wolff's statements. Are you telling us that you're using the defendant's own statements for the effect on the defendant?
No, Your Honor. We intend to use only Officer Capolino's statements here.
Okay, so do you wish to constructively redact the statements of the defendant?
Yes, we'd be fine with that.
Okay. With that, the state, do you have any objections to any of the detective's statements in this case?
Yes, Your Honor, still on the grounds of hearsay.
Okay. Which specific statements are we going to be eliciting here?
Your Honor, I believe we're going to be using lines 5 and 7.
And those are which, sorry, I don't see any line numbers on my.
Oh, Your Honor, it starts with, fine, Cotter Ashlock was released on parole last week.
Okay.
And Your Honor, we'd be fine with a limiting instruction that states that these statements are not being used for the truth, but only its effect on Nova Wölff.
Okay. I'm going to overrule the objection with that constructive redaction and the limiting instruction to the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Wölff, could you please read the 5th line?
Sure. 5th line says, Cotter Ashlock was released on parole last week. Informants say he's here in Corleone.
And the 7th?
Sure. He's looking for surviving loyalists of their gang in violation of parole, no less.
What happened after you spotted him?
I found it troubling that Cotter was indeed present in Corleone, just violating his parole. But I didn't do anything. In fact, I didn't have much time to process what I was seeing when my elderly neighbor, Charlie Reeves, came to my door in literal tears.
Did you ever find out why?
Apparently, Cotter Ashlock had been following him around the neighborhood. And then I opened the door to confront him and just bolted inside my house and started fighting me.
Ma'am, what happened after he got inside?
I had to protect my family and make sure he couldn't endanger them or myself. After I made sure he wouldn't further retaliate, I told him to walk down the basement himself.
What did you do in the basement?
Once my life was actively on the line, I restrained him on a chair so he couldn't hurt anyone, and then I called the police at around 11:35.
Ma'am, was your intent ever to kidnap Cotter Ashlock?
No. The truth is, I saw Cotter Ashlock in Corleone breaking his parole, so I had to restrain him at my house before he could pose a more serious threat to the community.
And did you intentionally harm Cotter Ashlock?
No, ma'am. Once he was in my house, I only did what was necessary to keep myself and my kids safe. I was scared, but I wasn't going to let my kids see their mom stand by and do nothing.
Thank you, Miss Wölff. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good day, Miss Wölff.
Good evening.
I want to talk about your opinions on Cotter Ashlock first.
Of course,
You
go
don't-
ahead.
You don't like him, do you?
No, I do not.
And you don't like the Ashlocks in general, right?
No, you see, Ashlock is this big crime family. No, I never liked them.
Also, because several years ago, the Ashlocks poisoned your very close friend, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Mark Volkovic. They poisoned him because he wouldn't pay for protection.
Exactly. And in fact, the Ashlocks killed your friend, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I want to talk about the night of the incident.
Of course.
Before we begin, to make it clear for the members of the jury, you only phoned the police at 11:35, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you recognized Mr. Cotter Ashlock at 10:30 p.m.?
Yeah, approximately when my neighbor Charlie Reeves came to my door.
So between these two timestamps, you had 1 whole hour before when you identified Ashlock and when you reported him to the police. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. As Mr. Charlie Reeves stated, there was some fighting going on, and then I had to tell him to go down to the basement, and then I had to make sure my kids were okay. So that's what happened in the 1 hour.
Ma'am, that is a yes to my question, right? You had 1 whole hour.
That is a yes.
Now, I want to talk about how many opportunities you had to phone the police during this 1 hour.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am, you knew that Ashlock was violating the law?
Yeah, violating his parole.
You saw Ashlock outside of your house,
That's correct.
and he did not know you were there.
No.
Objection, Your Honor, as to speculation, if I may explain.
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, opposing counsel is delving into the mind of Cotter Ashlock and as to whether or not he saw Nova Wölff. That's speculation.
Response?
Your Honor, this is a cross-examination. The witness can just answer they don't know.
I agree. I'm going to overrule the objection.
Miss Wölff, based on your observation, Ashlock did not know you were there. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure.
And he wasn't going after you, was he?
I'm not too sure.
And when Ashlock was trespassing your property, your first instinct was not to call the police. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, everything just spiraled down. He was following my neighbor, Charlie Reeves, and then violating his parole. I can't just watch him run off into the wild. So yeah, I had to perform citizen's arrest.
Ma'am, when you saw a criminal by the door, you did not call the police. Is that right?
No, I did not, but I did call the police when I thought what was necessary.
But ma'am, at the moment, you did not call the police. Is that right?
No, not at that moment.
Let the record reflect that the prosecution is Green Sharing Exhibit 2B, which has been pre-admitted under Stipulation 7. Miss Wölff, this is the recording between you and Ashlock, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And here, Mr. Ashlock said, "I want you to untie me before you spill a word." Did I read that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And now I would like to bring your attention to the bottom of this recording, specifically that this was produced between 11:17 to 11:20. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And while Mr. Ashlock was in your basement, you spoke with him. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Exactly, yes. And ma'am, during these 3 minutes, when you were having a conversation with Mr. Ashlock, when he was tied up, you did not call the police. Is that right?
No, I didn't. Like I said before, I called at 11:35 when I judged what was necessary.
Now, I would like to move on to when Mr. Ashlock allegedly left your house and came back. You heard Ms. Reese say in her direct that Cotter Ashlock exited your house. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
You also heard that Ashlock re-entered again. Is that right?
Yeah, that is also true.
And you were by the doorway then.
Yeah, I was.
And Ashlock was outside.
Yeah, he's outside the door.
You could have closed the door, is that right?
I could have, but I don't see why I would do that. A criminal is right outside my door. I'm not sure if I would just close the door on him.
And Ashlock was not physically threatening you, is that right?
I mean, he did come into my house and started fighting me, but...
And when they left this house, you did not call the police, is that right?
No, I didn't.
And ma'am, let's be clear, dialing the police only takes 3 numbers, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And explaining some more things about what's happening, I just detained him and called the police afterwards.
Ma'am, is that a yes or no to my question, that dialing the police only takes 3 numbers?
Yeah, 911.
Exactly. It only takes 9, 1, and 1, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you never thought of dialing those 3 digits?
I did. I called the police.
But at the moment you did not, did you?
No, not at that moment.
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect examination?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. Then the witness is excused, and that concludes the defense's case in chief. So timing, yep, it looks like we'll take a 5-minute break. All right. The prosecution may proceed when ready with their closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. She was acting as the judge, jury, and the jailer. Members of the jury, we no longer live in the world of an eye for an eye. Justice comes not by fear, not by anger, not by personal grievance, but reason and the law. Because the moment we allow individuals to decide what becomes of another purely by themselves, we abandon justice entirely. And yet, that is exactly what the defendant chose to do, when she ignored all of those principles and took matters into her own hands. On March 11th, 2025, Cotter Ashlock was walking down the street when he was struck unconscious and abducted. He woke up tied to a chair, duct tape over his mouth, threatened and interrogated by the defendant. And now, the defendant calls this justice? But that was not justice. She was acting as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. Members of the jury, that is why we are charging the defendant for unlawful imprisonment and interfering with an officer. Simply put, we need to prove that the defendant restrained another person without consent illegally and that this interfered with the police officer's duties. As a prosecution, we had a burden of proof that beyond a reasonable doubt that there is no logical explanation other than the defendant's guilt. And when that burden is met, the law is clear. You must find the defendant guilty. Today, the defense raised an affirmative defense, which means that they also have a burden of preponderance of evidence. They had to prove that the defendant's actions were legal under citizen's arrest, but failed to meet that burden because they failed to prove reasonable time and reasonable force. However, as a prosecution, we have met our burden of unlawful imprisonment and interfering with an officer today through 3 facts. 1, the defendant detained extensively. 2, the defendant dealt excessive harm. And 3, the defendant disregarded the police. 1, the defendant detained extensively. Members of the jury, you have heard today how Cotter Ashlock was walking down the street when he was struck with a violent blow to his head and taken to the defendant's house. You have heard that he woke up tied to a chair with duct tape over his mouth, his phone smashed and destroyed, and that he had to sit through all of that for 2 hours. 2, the defendant dealt excessive harm. You have heard from Cotter Ashlock himself that this was not a calm or controlled situation. The interrogation was violent, it was aggressive, and it was filled with coercion. You have heard accounts of a chaotic scene. Glass shattering, shouting, a scream, and then silence. And you have heard from the lead investigator that Mr. Ashlock was visibly shaken after the police arrived, and terrified even to this day. And 3, the defendant disregarded the police. You have heard from the direct examination of the lead investigator that he has warned the defendant not once but twice to stay out of the matter. You have heard from the defendant themselves how the first warning was ignored and the second flatly refused. You have also heard in Exhibit 2 that the defendant tied up and restrained Mr. Ashlock for at least 3 minutes. However, in those 3 minutes, she refused to dial 911, merely 3 digits. Instead of calling the police, she chose to replace them because she acted as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. Members of the jury, I want you to go back to a part of the defendant's cross when the prosecution asked the defendant on 3 occasions whether they could call the police. Occasion 1, Ashlock was out of the house. Occasion 2, Ashlock was physically tied up. And occasion 3, when Ashlock was out of the house again. When I asked them, did they call the police? What did they say? Members of the jury, they said no, no, and no. The defendant has consistently told you that she called the police when she deemed was necessary, that she wanted to protect her children. But members of the jury, I want you to really consider. If the defendant was trying to protect her 2 kids, would she really be bringing a criminal into her house? No, members of the jury, she wasn't doing it for protection. She was doing it for revenge. And that is why she played the judge, the jury, and the jailer. Members of the jury, Mr. Cotter Ashlock may be a criminal. He may have made mistakes, but he does not deserve to be tortured, to be degraded, and to be stripped of dignity. In fact, no man deserves to be treated that way. And this accountability lies squarely with the defendant alone. And under those rules, under that law, and based on the evidence and testimony you have heard, there's only one just verdict. Find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense, you can proceed with your closing argument whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. The crime, the capture, and the cause. It's March 11th, 2025. Cotter Ashlock, a former member of the notorious Ashlock crime family, is roaming the streets of Corleone. By violating his parole, he's free. For now. He's out of power, out of resources, and out of friends. And as if things couldn't get any worse, he's now in Nova Wölff's territory. At first glance, it may seem like Miss Wölff is the one in danger, a hardened criminal who has bribed, extorted, and murdered in the past, versus a law-abiding citizen. Not even a few days after entering the city that Mr. Ashlock used to run, he ends up right back in police custody. Today, opposing counsel has said that Mr. Wölff acted as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. But let's be honest today, members of the jury. Miss Wölff was not the judge, the jury, or the jailer. She was simply the neighbor who refused to ignore the danger in front of her and chose to protect herself and the one she loved. Yet today, Miss Wölff has been charged with unlawful imprisonment and interfering with an officer, and that is why we are here today. Today we have argued an affirmative defense. Miss Nova Wölff performed a lawful citizen's arrest. Now, a citizen's arrest means that, as a citizen, they are allowed to detain someone using reasonable force when that person is committing a felony or breaching the peace, and as long as the suspect is handed over to law enforcement within a reasonable amount of time. That's exactly what she did. But in this case, the prosecution carries the burden, not the defense, members of the jury, the prosecution. The burden to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, members of the jury, if they do not meet that burden, you must find Miss Nova Wölff guilty. And today, they have not met this burden for 3 reasons: the crime, the capture, and the calls. First, the crime. Miss Wölff knew that Cotter Ashlock was violating his parole. Every moment he remained in violation, he was committing a crime. She personally observed him there unlawfully. Under citizens' arrest principles, she only needed to witness him committing a crime to detain him. She used reasonable force. Miss Wölff acted within the rights given to any citizen. Second, the capture. When Cotter Ashlock pulled out the knife, Miss Wölff had to make a quick decision. She thought of her children, her family, herself. She thought of the danger standing in front of her. So she acted. She quickly detained Mr. Ashlock so he could not harm her family, or anyone else. She then contacted the police, not once, but twice. Today, you learn from Mr. Charlie Reeves himself that at one point, Mr. Ashlock was standing outside of the house on free will. But then, you also heard from Mr. Ashlock how he was detained and kept in holding, hands tied and mouth duct tape. What is that called? Reasonable doubt. 2 opposing sides, 2 opposing stories. Now, members of the jury, you also heard from Mr. Cotter Ashlock himself. He stated that Miss Nova Wölff smashed her phone, but members of the jury, in Exhibit 11, the forensic report stated that only Mr. Ashlock's fingerprints were found on the phone. What is that called? Reasonable doubt. And that brings me to my final point, the calls. When Miss Wölff discovered that Mr. Ashlock was violating his parole, she reported it to Miss Capellino. About 45 minutes later, she called again to inform law enforcement that Mr. Ashlock was in her custody. Miss Wölff did her job when she reported Miss Ashlock as in her custody and safe for the cops to come and resolve. Those are not the actions of someone interfering with the police. Those are the actions of someone cooperating with them. She reported the violation. She detained the suspect, and she notified the authorities. Members of the jury, let me tell you a story. A man was walking down the street. He sees a kid playing with this ball. The ball goes down to the street, and the kid chases it. On the other side, a car approaches, traveling at 40 miles per hour in a residential neighborhood. The man sees the car about to hit the kid. He sprints to the kid and pushes him aside. What happens next? Members of the jury, he gets hit by the car instead and loses his leg, but the child is safe. Moral of the story, members of the jury, no good deed goes unpunished. Miss Wölff tried to do her duty as a citizen of Corleone, and as a result, she's been accused of a kidnapping. And with that, this case is simple. It's about misplaced blame. It's about a woman who protected her family and is now being accused of what the law allows and supports. For these reasons, members of the jury, we ask that you find Miss Nova Wölff not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. The defense calls it a crime, a capture, and a call. And in fact, they are right. It was a crime, a capture, and a call. It was a crime to imprison, an unlawful capture, and a delayed call. The defendant acted as the judge, the jury, and the jailer. Find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
All right. So congratulations. It was pretty evident that this was one of the sort of elimination rounds. Both teams were excellent, very polished, very great presence during examinations and statements. A few things that I wanted to point out. It was a concise trial, like Dr. Lampert said, but there were some times where I felt that objections were missed. I did include those in my comments, but the main one for me, and I don't know if it was, I don't believe it was pre-admitted. I looked at the stipulations, but Exhibit 11 there was no hearsay objection to, and I understand that they tried to lay some groundwork for it to come in under a hearsay exception, but I still think it would have been worth objecting to that. To another thing that I wanted to call out, defense witnesses were both excellent. The defendant had a great sympathetic tone during both direct and cross-examination. Never got defensive on cross-examination, which is it's quite difficult to do as a defendant. And the taxi driver witness was excellent as well, very funny, and kept the character during cross as well. And then one last thing, I really enjoyed the prosecution's statements. I thought both the open and the close were done very well. So again, excellent job to both sides, and I wish you both the best of luck.
Hi, everyone. Great job, both teams. Fantastic round. This is the first round I'm seeing of this case. I think both sides did a very good job laying down like the context that we needed to hear to properly understand everything. I will say my main critique for both sides, we need a balance between confidence and composure. This goes for attorneys and witnesses alike. I think there were a lot of times where people sounded a little unsure in what they wanted to say or how they wanted to go about it, how to adapt to the trial, but also some points in time where people were maybe a little too composed, or at other times they weren't composed at all and it really showed. I think prioritizing that sort of thing could be very helpful for your performance, but also so you feel a lot more, I guess, confident in your own content and what you want to do as the trial progresses. But I will leave it at that for now. Congrats to both teams for making it this far.
Guys, that was a great round. Both teams were so great. I loved getting to watch it. I know that as a competitor myself, I like receiving like super thorough comments from scorers. So if you look at like my comments afterwards that I submitted on the form, there's a lot there. I promise that's just because like that's my preferences to receive a lot of comments. Talk to your coaches if they disagree with anything I said. Go with what your coaches said. But really great performance from both sides. If I were to give general comments, I think both sides could have done a better job at making your like big points hit. I think like as someone who doesn't know the case, I don't know exactly what your most important pieces of information are. So when you're doing an examination and you're kind of like talking in a really interesting tone and a good tone, but you don't change it throughout, it's hard for me as a juror to know which points I should be listening to that is the most important. So see if you can find in your examinations and even in your statements as well, which points are your big important points that you're building up to, and then change your tone throughout and your pacing throughout, or change something so that as an audience member, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be listening to and these are the big points I'm supposed to be getting. I think both sides could have done a better job at that, but your baselines were all really good. You all sound very like composed speakers. And I had a great time listening to you guys. There's a lot more comments on the forums. You should see them. But amazing job. I wish you guys luck in your future rounds.
We're about a minute away from you seeing these forms, and I can promise you all three judges have very good and thorough comments. So thank you, judges, for being so attentive to the trial. Let's do MVPs. We have a split decision for both the MVP attorney and the MVP witness. So I will acknowledge the runner-up and the winner. Receiving one vote for MVP attorney from the defense, Ms. Coco Jang. But
Yay!
winning MVP attorney, receiving the other two votes from the prosecution, Miss Chloe Hsieh.
Good job, Chloe.
This takes us to the witnesses, also split, receiving one vote from the defense, Mr. Ishan Sachdeva. Receiving the other two votes from the defense, Ms. Skylar Chen. Time for the announcement. Really well fought, and congratulations both to Team King Arthur and Team Unicorn. But advancing to the semifinal, top 4 out of 48, is the defense. Well done to both teams.